Today's episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast is brought to you by Poor Richard's Cafe and Star Local Media. Poor Richard's Cafe, Plano's oldest restaurant since 1973. They are open daily from 5:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m., serving the three most important meals of the day: breakfast, lunch, and dessert. It is true Texas home-style cooking made with love and grit. That is Poor Richard's Cafe, located off of Avenue K in Plano. Welcome to another episode of the Star Local Media High School Sports Podcast. My name is Matt Welch. I'm the sports editor at Star Local Media, and I am being joined by Taylor Ragland and Devin Hassan. Between the three of us, between Justin Thomas, Brian Murphy, Kendrick Johnson, our whole staff here, we've had a big, just a whole snoot full of soccer these last few days. The first round of the playoffs is in the books, so with the second round kicking off, I believe just about all our games are on Tuesday nights. So let's at least use this space to just to reflect on the happenings of that very first round. Games that included some shootouts, some absolute marathons. Just some absolutely just crazy soccer with just one round in the books. So let's just try to touch on as many of them as we can. And obviously with the three of us, lots of crossover between districts 9-6A and 10-6A. As far as how that bi-district series went, you had actually they split on the boys' side. Yep. Went 2-2, and then the girls 9-6A got the edge 3-1 there. You guys saw a couple though. Taylor, you had one. When I say marathon match, not just in terms of regulation overtime, but the shootout itself, man. Yep. That Sachse Plano West match was about as crazy as it got for that first round of the playoffs. Yeah, it was nuts, and it was several times during regulation and overtime there were some really near misses. The first half of the overtime period, Sachse scored right after the buzzer sounded. So that would have ended it. There were several, Hannah Hooks from Sachse. I tweeted out this highlight. I believe I can't remember if it was in the first or second half of regulation, but West had a corner. I believe it was in the first half when West had the wind, and she literally headed the ball off the line. Like, that ball was at least halfway over the goal line. She headed it off to save a goal there, and throughout it was kind of Sachse had a couple near misses right over the bar. Ella McQuaid for West had a free kick that she put between the top of the goal and the goalpost at Kimber Stadium. It was so close to being, upper 90 goal, and that would have done it. So it was back and forth, crazy. The wind was a major factor. Blowing straight along the field, one team would have it with them for one half, and then against them for the other half. Same thing in overtime. But in the end, it comes down to scoreless tie, comes down to PKs, and they go 20 rounds of penalty kicks. 20 rounds, and it was a marathon, to be sure. I was furiously trying to film, get all the highlights, take notes on who scored. It was just one after the other, back and forth. And West actually had a chance to end it earlier than that. In the first group of five, West scored. Lindsay Deppner made a save for West, and then West, if they had scored again, would have won, but they missed. So that was, that sent us to the second round, and then back and forth again. I think West ended up winning 9-8 on another save from Deppner, and both saves actually were, we were talking about the nature of the shootout and how hard it is to save. She just stood in the middle. I guess she called Sachse's bluff and was like, I'm not going to dive, I'm not going to do anything. I think you're just going to kick it right at me. I think you're just going to stare right at me and kick it at me. And they did. And, I heard from Deppner after the game basically that, once she saved it, there was kind of a moment of she didn't even know the game was really over. She was just
I don't have to save another one?
Yeah, she was just so in the mode of the marathon and back and forth and everything. And then she looked over and her team was coming to, dogpile her and all that crazy stuff. So, yeah, it was a wild one. West moves on over number one ranked Sachse out of 10-6A. Crazy back and forth game. Weird end, tough way to end the season, certainly for Sachse. So West will move on to play Tyler Lee. So we'll see how that goes. I think they beat Temple 4-0 in their opener.
And they returned to form for the Plano West defense, which had taken its lumps over down the home stretch. You mentioned the shootout. Where do we? Because now the shootout is front and center with the high school soccer playoffs. Some districts decide to do them during the regular season, some don't. But you have no choice in the playoffs because there has to be a winner. Yep. So where do we kind of stand on the shootout as far as being such a determining factor in how these teams end up advancing?
I think that, my personal opinion is that it's tough just because you're not asked to do it
on a regular basis, and then all of a sudden it comes down to your season is either continuing or over based on this thing that you almost never do. And certainly you can practice it, you can do whatever you want, but there's no substitute for the pressure that, you know, those 20 girls that took shots in the West Sachse game felt in that moment when your season is literally on the line in something that you almost never do. So it's just tough to, you know, I don't know how else. I mean, I guess the only other way would be, you know, to be like the NHL playoffs and just continue to play overtime until somebody finally wins, or go to some sort of golden goal format.
I like the golden goal personally. I don't like the 2 overtime format that they use. The 2 10-minute, I think it's if you score, you know, it's over. But yeah, you also then have to just factor in the endurance part of it. The fact that these are still kids. And you know, 100 minutes of you know, straight pretty much. I mean, with a couple little breaks in between, you know, those kids are just gassed by the end of the second overtime. And if you went to, you know, play until somebody scores, you know, it's you got one team that's completely exhausted, and it's you know, you might have a fluky in that way. So I don't have a problem with the shootout. Is there a better way to do it? Possibly. Could you? We're talking about tweaking maybe the penalty kick. You know, there's all sorts of options that you go to there to make it more difficult for the shooter, to give the goalkeeper more of an advantage. I mean, when I played growing up, that's what they taught us. Even though the goalie is not supposed to move before the ball's kicked, they always make a guess one way or the other. Like you say, if you kick it straight, a lot of times you'll make it because the goalie's already committed to one side or the other. So sometimes a straight on shot is your best chance of making it. You know,
I just feel like it's just when you have to say the word guess in a situation like that.
The odds are just so
I feel like the word guess should never come into the equation when you're having to basically decide a winner or loser. You want as much skill as possible to be inserted into the equation. And I do wish there was more of a, I don't know, maybe it is moving the ball, you know, moving the kick back a little bit to where it does, you know, maybe level out the amount of skill required from striker to goalkeeper and whatnot. I was always a big fan of the run up just because it did feel like that was more of a, more skill went into that. It was the true, I mean, it really is like an oncoming car crash when you have the keeper and the and the player with the ball just going head on. But I get it, I get the injury concerns with that format and whatnot.
Well, and although the shooter obviously has the decided advantage, let's not take away from the fact that there's incredible pressure.
Oh yeah. You can just straight up miss too. Absolutely.
You still have to go out there and execute. And how many times have you seen a team's best player walk up there having to make a goal,
shank it,
prolong it, and they pull back and shoot high. They shoot wide. That pressure is just immense in those situations.
Yeah, I do feel like there is a better way. I've just said it's just a soccer philosophy, just in general. I just always feel like it does feel like there is too much guesswork that you've spent all this time just grinding, trying just to find some way to reach a winner and a loser. And I get it. But soccer can be so weird where you can have a match where you outshoot a team by like a 5-to-1 ratio, but then you get into a shootout and it's like you're on a level playing field. You might not necessarily guarantee that the better team comes away the victor, but that's playoffs in general. I get that. I don't know. I feel like there's just so much guesswork that goes into the soccer shootout. I don't know. Never been a fan of that being a way to decide a soccer match, be it at the high school level, pro level, whatever.
Well, and one other element that we've kind of touched on in previous podcasts is the fact that not every it's not uniform as far as district play goes. Yeah. So you have districts that just go straight to a tie, and that's how they count in the standings. Other districts go to shootouts. Well, you might have a team though that has been in the shootout all year, as opposed to a team that's been in 4 during district play. That gives them a decided advantage.
I think so. Yeah, agree. Let's see, elsewhere within the 9-6A versus 10-6A bi-district matchups, Allen, I mean, no theatrics, no drama there needed. Allen's boys and girls both advance out of the first round. The boys, I was at this game on Friday, they shut out Garland, 2-0. Allen has had I want to say this is now like 6 of their past 7 matches have been shutout wins. Allen, building off of that district championship, looking the part. It's interesting because another dynamic that gets factored into the soccer playoffs that it feels like maybe the postseason is the first time when it really kind of is hammered home, but just the importance of wind and how just the gusty weather can really kind of impact the flow of a match and how well a team is able to play. And Allen is a team that feels like a lot of teams, maybe you think that when you have the wind at your back, it kind of gives you a bit of an edge just because there's going to be a bit more behind the ball when you kick it. Allen's a team that, because their style of play is predicated on keeping the ball on the ground and just very tactical. So they're a team that kind of actually benefits going into the wind, and it was something that they had a 1-0. I mean, they never trailed in this matchup. Obviously, it was a shutout, but they led 1-0 at the half. On a nice a free kick goal from about 40 yards out by Benny Lou, but just a ball that definitely benefited from having the wind at his back. But then in the second half, you really saw Allen really begin to assert itself. Even though the final score was just 2-0, the second half when Allen was going into the wind, able to play much more of their style, and it really did seem like that was where they really, even though they ended up winning just by 2 goals, they were in firm control and never really felt like Garland was able to really put much pressure on him over that last 40 when Allen was able to play its game for a change. And then on the girls' side, this was a game, Allen's girls only led 1-0 at the half against Naaman Forest. So at this one hand, you're thinking, okay, let's maybe still not, still too close for comfort and whatnot, but then they were up with 4 goals in the second half. Cassie Taylor, Laurel Landry, Anna Reza, Logan Towns, they all score in the second half. Cassie Taylor has 2 goals in that win, a 5-1 victory over Naaman Forest, and the Lady Eagles march on just to spare themselves any sort of drama. This was a team that required a shootout last year against Hebron in the first round. Allen, which was coming off a district title last year as well, coming perilously close to going 1-done, which just would have been an absolute, just devastating way for their season to end. And but now, Allen is able to live to fight another day. So yes, not much, nothing to be akin to what you saw with Sachse and Plano West over in Allen and its 2 first-round victories. Devin, you got to see the other Sachse as they took care of McKinney Boyd. Very rare to see a McKinney Boyd team, exit this early in the playoffs with as strong as that program has been. Nevertheless, what were some takeaways from that matchup?
I thought if you would have gone into halftime based on the way the teams played, now granted Sachse had the wind at its back in the first half, but it could have been 4-0 Sachse. Instead, it's 2-1 in a really bizarre instance. Late in the first half, official whistles a foul down near the Sachse box and says Sachse free kick. It was essentially a goal kick. And so they line up and they're ready to kick it away, and they kick it, and he stops play and goes and talks to his line judge 50 yards behind the play, talks with him. No, it's going to be a penalty kick instead. And you thought, because he said, I guess the line judge said that he saw a Sachse player stomp on a McKinney Boyd player from 50 yards away. And so that was potentially game changing, because all of a sudden now McKinney Boyd cuts it to 2-1 going into the half, and then they had the wind at their back in the second half. They come out and get the equalizer about 15 minutes in. But you mentioned teams that play better into the wind. Those are the teams that can really control the ball. Very good passing teams, and that's what Sachse is. Talking to Colby Peak, McKinney Boyd coach after the game, he said coming in that set pieces were going to be dangerous, and all 3 of Sachse's goals came out set pieces. And sure enough, with about 15 minutes to play, a long free kick into the box. Actually, the McKinney Boyd keeper made an incredible save on Luke Braswell's header, but Jake DeVault's right there with the rebound to knock it home. 3-2 victory. Again, 2 very good teams, 2 very evenly matched teams. Sachse kind of gave away a couple opportunities in the first half that could have given them a bit more cushion. So it did end up going to the wire, down to the wire. But solid win for Sachse. I don't think it should be considered an upset by any stretch of the imagination. I know McKinney Boyd has a very proud history and a very proud tradition, but so does Sachse. Sachse is, this is their 5th year in a row in the playoffs. They're just 2 years removed from a trip to the regional championship game. So this is not a Sachse team that's a stranger to the playoffs or anything like that. So, we'll see what they have. They go and they play Longview Tuesday night in Athens. Longview came from that dogfight in 11-6A where there basically 5 teams still had a chance to win the district championship in the final week. But Longview ended up winning it by just a couple points. So a very solid Longview team, but I think Sachse certainly has a great chance to move on.
With we can quickly talk about North Mesquite, because that's who the Allen boys went out to draw. Actually a rematch from non-district play, a match that was won by North Mesquite 1-0. Allen will have the luxury of getting that game in its home stadium, though. That game is 6:30 p.m. Tuesday at Eagle Stadium. Allen was able to take care of business. Just what were some thoughts on what North Mesquite was able to accomplish in its first round win over Waco Midway?
Well, and North Mesquite kind of has considered their last 2 regular season games playoff games because they had to win both to get in. There was no guarantee heading into that final day that they were even going to be around for the playoffs. They win it in dramatic fashion in their regular season finale against Rockwall Heath. Hector Castillo scores on a free kick with 45 seconds seconds left in the second overtime. And if they go to a shootout, there's a chance they don't make the playoffs based on tiebreakers.
Wow.
But they end up making it in there against a very good Waco Midway team. That's just, we talked about it before, so well-rounded as far as our overall athletic program. But Abdiel Ramos, Hector Castillo, they score in the 2-0 victory. Heriberto Campuzano, one of the top scorers in this region, set up the goal by Castillo. And again, I think North Mesquite's playing with a lot of confidence based on how they closed the regular season, obviously getting that first win, that by-district win. But then I think if you go back, look at their game in January, both teams are very different. But going against Allen and knowing that they can beat Allen is a huge, huge advantage for them.
Let's see. That's actually the game that I'm going to be at tomorrow. I'm going to be covering Allen and North Mesquite. Devin, you'll be covering a cross-market game within your area. You have Rowlett and Mesquite. Out at Hanby, 7:30 on Tuesday. Just some quick comments on just the Skeeters and the Eagles getting the job done in the first round.
Yeah, Rowlett, the number 1 seed out of 10-6, they got pushed to a shootout against a very good Prosper team. They lost one of their star players, Carson Prestridge, with an injury. This was their first match without him. Here's a guy that scored 20 goals and had 20 assists. That's a big hole to fill. But survive and advance, they were able to do that in a shootout. And then Mesquite, Mesquite can score. So can Rowlett, but Mesquite and the way they did it, they beat Waco 6-2 last Thursday. Wow. Kevin Parra, David Perez, Eduardo Zamora, Edgar Carrasco, Lenny Andre. It seems like every time they score 5 or 6 goals, it's 5 or 6 different guys doing it. So they have a lot of different weapons that can hurt you. That's going to be something that Rowlett's going to have to be very aware of, because obviously they have a stud in Kevin Adolfo. He's got 34 goals this season. But without Carson Prestridge, now all the defense's attention is going to be on Kevin Adolfo, so they're going to have other guys step up, and I think that's going to be the difference in this game, is if Rowlett can get some support, because they're going to need it, because Mesquite's going to be focused on the one guy.
Before we make our line change, just a couple quick notes on some of the happenings in our areas in 5A. I see you've got some information on Lovejoy right there, Taylor. Leopards needed the shootout to survive and advance over Frisco, but talk about Lovejoy punching its ticket to the second round.
It seemed a lot like, absent the scoreless draw that I had with Plano West and Sachse, kind of a very similar thing. It looks like, a goal for each side in the first and second half. I guess scoreless in overtime, and then a shootout that, according to Max, perhaps it was provided by Lovejoy, but 10-9 in favor of Lovejoy. So another marathon, another, kind of more proof positive that, the shooters are certainly favored. If they can handle the pressure and just put a good shot on net, more than likely you're going to score. So it seems, I'm not sure how the Frisco miss came. I don't know if it was a save or, just a miss. But yeah, Lovejoy, another, perennial contender, strong program. I don't want to say a down year, but definitely it seems like a year where, they didn't quite have, almost like McKinney Boyd, a great program, a lot of tradition. Who knows, always, liable to make noise when they get into the postseason, but maybe not, the strongest year they've had in recent memory. But, nevertheless, they get past Frisco. They have Adamson next. And who knows, it's like I said, it's one of those programs where there's an expectation there that they're going to make a playoff run, and sometimes that can overcome a lot of either deficiencies or just not quite having the talent that you normally do, and just having been there. So they get past Frisco in the first round, and I guess we'll see what happens from here.
You just talked marathons. I had a personal marathon on Thursday with my coverage night. I was at Lake Dallas for the doubleheader between Capel and Denton Geyer. That game went to a shootout, and then I saw not Denton Geyer, but Lake Dallas and Saginaw. That game went to overtime, almost a full 100 minutes. The Lake Dallas Saginaw game, and I want to emphasize, I'm trying to stay away from hyperbole when I say this. That was the craziest finish to any soccer game that I have ever covered. It seems impossible to think that Lake Dallas could have found a way to somehow one up the emotion of last year when they won the first playoff game in program history. They did it on Thursday against Saginaw. So here's just to set the story for this one. So Lake Dallas, they went undefeated in District 8-5A.
Undefeated, 10-0-2.
Yeah.
So yes, unbeaten.
So coming off a district championship, obviously entering the playoffs, they know that they're not trying to make any history with winning a playoff game or anything. They carry themselves with the expectations of a team that now believes they should win in the first round. They find themselves down 2-1 entering the final minute against Saginaw. Saginaw. Saginaw team that just caught fire in the second half. Lake Dallas scored like 4 minutes into the match. You're thinking, okay, they are on their way. No, Saginaw righted the ship. They got a 2-1 lead, and heading into the final minute, final 30 seconds, ticking away. Brock Pope, Lake Dallas standout junior, sophomore, whatnot. But he gets a shot on goal, bounces off the Saginaw keeper's hands, goes up in the air, Saginaw keeper catches it, and then there's a skirmish in the box and results in a card being issued to Saginaw with 15 seconds left in regulation. Carlos Amor is called upon to take the ensuing PK. He takes the PK, Saginaw keeper guesses right, he dives, I believe he dove left. He bats it away, Zamora runs in, scores on the rebound, tie game with 15 seconds left in regulation. Headed to overtime. So, just again, both teams just trading blows there in overtime. And then in the closing seconds of the second overtime, so right up against the potential of going to a shootout, Lake Dallas gets the opening that they need. Hansel Cabanas lobs the ball right over the Saginaw defense to Anthony Patty, who puts it home with 2 seconds left in the second overtime, and Lake Dallas gets a 3-2 victory over Saginaw. Just absolute insanity. To get 2 goals, not just 1, but 2 goals in the final 15 seconds of either regulation and overtime. And it's kind of poetic in the sense that you look at how Lake Dallas had its season end last year because of a goal that they allowed in the 80th minute to Lovejoy that set up overtime. They lost in overtime, but I mean, you're a minute away from advancing, to the regional quarterfinals. They let their guard down for a second, so just the emphasis on you have to play to the end, literally play to the absolute last second, and then to see what that message was able to do for Lake Dallas in a game where they got all they could handle from number 4 seeded Saginaw.
Well, that's what, heading into the game, the impression I got from Brandon Martin is that Saginaw was going to be the tougher, despite being the 4 seed. The other, I believe they had Brewer would have been the other potential possibility, much more physical team, but just the overall impression I got was that Saginaw was more technical and experienced and maybe a tougher out, and it certainly proved to be that way. So
just the second ever playoff win in Lake Dallas history. What a game! That's it. Like I said, the craziest ending that I've seen any soccer game at the high school level that I've covered. Shout out to the Falcons. What a game! What an absolute thriller. I mean, if I'm going to sit through 200 plus minutes of soccer, it might as well. It might as well be for an ending that I probably will never see again. So some fun times covering Lake Dallas on Thursday. And that is a look at just some of the happenings in our respective areas. Did you have something? Sorry, my bad.
No, I just wanted to real briefly touch on my Mesquite teams. That's just I had 4 girls teams in the 6A and 5A playoffs, and they went 0-4. I had 6 boys teams in the 6A and 5A, and they went 6-0. So I feel bad if I leave West Mesquite and Poteet out.
Absolutely, go on. My bad.
No. West Mesquite. That was a game I was at Friday night against Corsicana, the 4 seed. 1-0 is the final. I mean, Jesse Velasquez scores on a header in the 3rd minute, and you just thought, okay, this is going to be 7-8-0, and it probably could have been. West Mesquite had a huge skill advantage. And they showed that off for much of the night, but that they just a foot high, a foot wide, maybe making the extra pass when they could have got shot off. And that's fine and good, but then you get to the second half, and Corsicana's still hanging around, and that it's all it takes is one great play, or sometimes just one fluky play, to even things up, and then then you run the risk of going to what we talked about, the shootout, the dreaded shootout, which evens everything up. But I think West Mesquite will come out in the second round with the more emphasis on scoring. It doesn't have to be a highlight reel goal. It doesn't have to be flashy. It doesn't have to be pretty. Just put the ball in the back of the net. Because when you let a team hang around like that, they survived Friday night, but you're not going to survive forever. And you're keeping yourself in that position. So I think West Mesquite, again, this is a team I expect to make a run. 3 rounds deep, 4 rounds deep. I expect them to run into one of the Friscos at some point in time. But again, you have to get there first, and I think that they will probably learn from Friday night and kind of come out with more of a killer instinct in the next round. Poteet, very impressive 3-0 win over Ennis. I've talked a lot about West Mesquite, but Poteet has kind of been rounding into form here late in the season. I think they've saved their best play for late, and again, a very impressive 3-0 outcome. And I think they're a team. Again, that side of the region, we don't know much about. They play John Tyler in the next round. Don't know too much about John Tyler. West Mesquite plays Jacksonville. Don't know pretty much anything about Jacksonville. But I think both of those teams can make a run to that side of the bracket, and in fact could end up meeting up at some point in time.
All right, and that is a look at just some of the happenings through one round of the high school soccer playoffs in our respective areas. Still got plenty more to discuss with Kendrick, Justin, and Brian, and we will give them the floor in just a moment. But first, got to shine the student athlete spotlight, and for that, Taylor at the Plano West. The Lady Wolves, fresh off a nice little 4-1 shocker in the first round of the playoffs. That marathon match over Sachse. One of the key pieces in this Plano West run has been Regan Chapman. Taylor, you had a chance to chat with Regan on the Lady Wolves season to date, and we will see what she had to say after a word from this sponsor. Today's podcast is brought to you by Star Local Media. 14 newspapers and websites with a print distribution of 270,000 homes and monthly page views of 600,000 online. Star Local Media, your community voice for news. And now, let's get back to the podcast.
How's it going, everybody? This is Taylor Ragland out here at Plano West with Plano West girls soccer senior captain Regan Chapman. Obviously, a pretty big win for you guys last week. Marathon with Sachse, but it definitely came after some struggles toward the end of the year. Last year, I know you guys had to win out basically to get in. This year, you've done enough work to avoid a 3-game losing streak knocking you guys out. But how did you guys kind of reset after that into district and mentally prepare for Sachse? And what was that game like for you guys?
Well, we just came into the practices really hard. We decided to do some refocusing, some team bonding to make sure we really get after it in the game because it is make or break. The game was obviously really hard. As you said, it's a marathon. But we just, before the game, talked about it, how it's do or die, and we just really focused throughout the game and played our game.
I know in the first half of district, I think you guys only gave up 3 goals and had a really good goal differential, and then over the back half it was 18 or something. So obviously a little bit of a change, but back to obviously a scoreless draw entering the shootout with Sachse, so the defense was there. What do you think kind of changed in your preparation and in the way you approached the game that kind of got you guys back to what you do best?
As I said, just we really focused on playing our game and playing as a team instead of individual effort. We decided to make sure it was really a team effort and really put it all on the line. So,
as a senior captain, obviously you've been around a while, seen some different teams come and go. It's the first playoff win you guys have had since I think 2015. So just how have you kind of matured, I guess, during your career, and how do you think this team is maybe different than some of the ones you've been on in the past?
Well, my freshman year, we didn't even make playoffs. And then coming through my senior year where we made it past the first round, it was just so crazy watching the program grow and watching all the girls around me grow as players and as teammates. It's just been such a cool experience. This year's team, I guess, what's kind of,
as a senior captain, you get to set the course a little bit. So, what's kind of the identity, I guess, of this group of girls, and what do you think maybe sets you guys apart from, some of the other teams, like I mentioned, that you've been on before?
Well, I think this team is really special, especially for me. They're all my family, and I know that I wouldn't be the person I am today without them. So I think just thinking about that and how it's my last year really pushes me, and I know some of the other girls to really go out there and play for each other and do the best that we can.
Going back to the Sachse game, obviously, I'm sure a lot of things are running through your head as a senior, especially with the game on the line and going all the way to penalty kicks. Then obviously 10 rounds, a marathon there, not just throughout the game. But what kind of was going through your head? And when Lindsay saved that last ball and you guys had realized you won, what was that moment like for you guys?
Well, I was pacing back and forth. I was so scared knowing that it could be my last ever game as a Lady Wolf. And when I saw her save that, I just had so many emotions running through me. I ran so fast. I was so excited.
With District 9-6A and 10-6A, there were a lot of first-round matchups that, you guys were the number 4 seed, they were the number 1 seed, but that doesn't necessarily, I guess, define how good a lot of those matchups were. Yeah. But, you still take down the district champion from 10-6A, so how much confidence, I guess, is that giving you guys moving forward in the postseason?
Obviously, we have a lot of confidence going into it, but also Tyler Lee is a good school. Obviously, they're in second round for a reason, so I think if we just go out there and play our hardest, we'll be fine.
What do you think that matchup with Tyler Lee, coming up on Tuesday tomorrow, what do you think that's going to be like for you guys, and how do you think overall you guys match up with them?
Well, obviously, it's going to be a hard match. I think we can do it. I think we can pull it out. We're a good team. They're a good team. It's going to be tough.
I guess the last thing is, as a senior captain, your career, or high school career at least, wrapping up, what's kind of one thing that, you'll take away not only from this season, but from your time as a Wolf in general, I guess?
Honestly, I'm just really thankful for the experience. It's brought me so many great friends and so many great experiences that I'll never forget, and I wouldn't want to change for anything. So no matter what the outcome is, I'm just really glad to be a part of this program and really glad for the girls and coaches who have helped me along the way.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Regan. We're going to go ahead and get back to the second half of the podcast. Good luck tomorrow as you continue in the playoffs, and we will catch up with you guys soon.
All right, a big thanks again to Regan Chapman of Plano West Girls Soccer. We are back for the second half of this edition of the podcast. This is Justin Thomas. He runs it all from Denton County, pretty much every city in Denton County, Coppell, Flower Mound, Louisville, Carrollton, Colony. Can't forget the Colony, a little on rival. I like to forget them sometimes. Yeah. And then we got our McKinney expert right here, Kendrick Johnson. Of course, I'm Brian Murphy. Frisco, Little Elm, Prosper, Salina, that whole area is my coverage area. And we had a ton of first-round soccer playoff matchups. Man, I know you had a million. I know you had a good amount too, just from McKinney alone.
And then we had a crossover.
Yeah, so
because, we started at 10-5A and. Is it 9-5A?
9-5A, yeah.
Surprisingly, they split. I know the teams from 10-5A, the Wiley Easts, the McKinney Norths, and the Lovejoys of the world had a chip on their shoulder on the boys' side because they felt people were counting them out because everybody was saying Frisco ISD was going to run ruckshot. Didn't happen. They went 2-2, and it could have easily been 4-0 because 3-1 because I know North was down 3-0, scored 2 goals in 7 minutes, and had a shot to send the thing in overtime and would have had to win.
You're talking about the boys' game.
The boys against
Heritage. Well,
and then,
the girls
pull out a win.
The girls. I'm going to pause you there. The girls McKinney North team. They almost lost to Lebanon Trail in the first round. Lebanon Trail. They limped into the playoffs. They had to win a play-in game against Liberty. They don't have seniors, and they gave North all they could handle.
Justin,
yes.
Question:
Kendrick,
does almost count in the playoffs?
Well, no.
Moral victory.
He brought up almost. He said, they had a 3-0 lead. They came back to make it a 1 goal. Okay, if we're talking about almost, Lebanon Trail, shout out to them. I'm just giving you a little taste of your own medicine, Kendrick.
I actually talked about them on John 8 last night. But McKinney North did what they had to do. Coach Lovell and them move on to the next round. Second year in a row. Last year their season ended against Highland Park in the area around at Wildcat Ram Stadium. They go back to the scene of the crime. They take on Carrollton Creekview, pesky squad, and whoever wins will be.
Lady Mustangs coming off a 9-1 win in their playoff.
My gosh, who they play?
Dallas Samuel.
Oh, one of the Dallas. Oh, they're paired up with the Dallas program, Spruce and Samuel.
Yeah. Turner beat Spruce 5-1, and Creekview beat Samuel 9-1. So Turner's going to play Frisco Independence now, one of your teams, and Creekview McKinney North.
Yeah, it should be interesting.
There's so many segues that we could go into right now. I have no idea where to go.
There's too many teams.
If we want to talk Independence, I got to give them some love first off. Before we dive any further, they're on a 12-game winning streak right now. In that Frisco district, they finished first place over the defending state champion Wakeland Wolverines, who I know you've seen. Girls. Independence. They're state ranked in the top 10. Last time I saw, like I said, 19-1-1. They close out the season with a 7-0 win over Centennial. Centennial, they're in the second round of the playoffs. We'll talk about them in a little bit. They play Highland Park. Tough draw there for second round, but anyways.
Good luck with all that.
So then they get the first round going. And it was not even close against Princeton. They won that one 7-0. Landry Corbett, she had another big game. She had a hat trick. She had 6 goals in that final game against Centennial. So they're just on a tear. The game before that, they beat Frisco 8-0. And so they're just demolishing these teams, in the Frisco and now in the playoffs. Tough draw for Carrollton Creekview. Or Turner.
He gets going. The Creekview's playing North.
That's right, man. But so many.
They all win together, though.
For real. What's next? I know you had
What about Little Elm? They're the last one left out of 8-5A.
True. So Little Elm had some heartbreak on the boys' side. Went into the lovely 0-0 extra time game. Still tied after 2 extra times. They go into shootouts. literally goes down to the wire, comes down to one miss.
Yeah.
And Little Elm loses 5-4. But, first time back in the playoffs since 2014.
That's how I went with McKinney North. McKinney North boys, this is the first time in the playoffs since 2016. Got a new coach, CJ Shelton, who's bringing a new energy. So them getting to the playoffs is a big thing. I know it hurts now that they lost, but they played competitive. They were down 3-0 with 70 minutes to go, and it came within a shot away from time in regulation. They got 2 goals.
Was that one of those deals where no one expected them to make the playoffs, or with that district they were kind of?
They with that district, but them getting second seed or above is a big thing because it's very top heavy.
Yeah. Gotcha.
But the thing is, they scrimmage against. They want scrimmage. They play non-district against 6A teams like McKinney High, who's still in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So they got a lot of experience. It's just they were like a dark horse team. I definitely look for them to be better next year.
See, and that's how the Little Elm boys were, and their future's bright with them. Some of their best players, Damian Castorena, their midfielder, he's only a sophomore. Their goalie made some phenomenal saves. He's only a sophomore. He kept them in that game. Grapevine very well could have scored a bunch of goals that game. But Grapevine, the number one team in that district, coming in, 7-5A, took them down to the wire, lost in shootouts. No shame in that. And then the Little Elm girls, as you were alluding to, they take care of Azle, 3-0, and they will take on Burleson Centennial at Coppell tomorrow night. So should be interesting to see if they can keep it rolling.
Tough losses for the Colony out of that district, their boys and their girls. The boys, they pick up a red card with about 5 minutes left and then end up giving up the game-winning goal. It was 0-0, get a red card and then give up a goal with 5 minutes left. The girls, they get into extra time scoreless. They actually score a goal to take the lead, so they're up 1-0 in the overtime. Then they give one back up with 2 minutes left, kind of a questionable foul that led to a free kick that they scored off of, and then they end up losing in shootouts too. So both the boys and the girls hadn't won since 2014, so pretty tough way for their season.
It's crazy that how the PKs can determine a game and how big a deal it was. Like in the north, what's your Frisco team?
Which one? Heritage?
Heritage. They were 2-0. They got a in the box call, so therefore they got a free kick and took advantage of it.
Speaking of Little Elm and their boys game against Grapevine, they had a penalty kick. There was a handball on Grapevine in the 9th minute. They could have set the tone early in the game that was 0-0. If they scored early there, they got saved. And right there at the beginning of the game. So, but if they score that one, that game's different. That's not a 0-0 game down the stretch. That could be, things could get a little wild. A lot of scoring back and forth, or they can hang on and win that 1-0. So
you mentioned the shootouts too, Kendrick. It's interesting. Like for example, the Colony didn't even do shootouts, and they played Birdville, who did shootouts all through district and stuff, and then they get in the playoffs, and one team's never done them this year, and the other team's plenty experience. So that's always a
shame on you coaches that don't do that.
See, that's another thing,
and that's what kept our Frisco Centennial.
How about UIL?
I mean,
make a rule that there's shootouts or not shootouts. Why can't they just pick one or the other?
Yeah.
Why does it have to be up to districts?
I feel it should be a statewide thing. Every team should have that same advantage or disadvantage.
Play by the same rules.
Because Frisco
is a 9-6A. 9-5A.
9-5A does not do shootouts. They don't do extra time. They do the whole points.
Didn't do them either.
Ties. Yeah. So did Little Elm, the Colony, Lake Dallas, and it hurt Frisco. They played a Lovejoy team. Frisco, they finished second in 9-5A. Great year, bounce back year. 39 points I think was the total they had in the standings. Mm-hmm. They lose in a shootout to Lovejoy. I don't know if Lovejoy in their district they did shootouts and whatnot, but it seemed like they had the advantage there. But I feel like a lot of our games, went to shootouts. Yeah. Prosper boys, they lost in a shootout to Rowlett. Mm-hmm. And if we're talking red cards, the Prosper girls, they were the beneficiary of Rowlett getting a red card. Yeah. Me and Devin Hassan were talking, earlier this morning right before we came on. He said Rowlett had a red card in the first minute of that game. Prosper won 4-0. I'm not sure if that has anything to do with playing a man down or a woman down, I should say. But
you can't give yourself, put yourself in that disadvantage.
Oh, for sure. In the first minute, that's a no-no.
The North call was so bad that the coach was like, we knew that was going to get called because it was a corner kick, so the ball's in the air and they go, and the guy just
red card. Really, man, that's rough. That's rough. And I understand you had the upset of the freaking century.
Enough 5A talk. Let's get to 6A. Yes, 6A boys, where District 6A went perfect 4-0 against District 5-6A.
Now, who predicted that?
Not me. I mean,
I don't think anyone did.
I'm not like super shocked, but I definitely didn't predict it either.
Sure.
But yeah, what you're alluding to is Hebron, number 4 seed, taking down mighty, undefeated, number 1 in the nation, Southlake Carroll, 2-0. We actually had one of our interns, Kevin, was out covering that game for us. So he said,
Kevin gets the best games.
Kevin does always draw good games. Like, I'm gonna have to just send him to a really lopsided softball game or something just to humble him a little bit.
That'll go to 10 innings. Don't worry.
Shout out to Kevin. One thing me and JT was talking about off air is how being ranked number 1 in the nation has been like a curse.
McKinney Boyd knows all about that.
The last 2 years. 2 years ago, they lost to Southlake. They blew a 2-0 lead. And then last year, they played them again in the first round. And they won the shootout. And they used that momentum to go all the way to the regional finals. But having that pressure is a big
so Hebron came out. Alex Gusala gets a goal just 2 minutes in. So they immediately get
that pressure already.
Talking to Kevin, I guess Carroll actually scored like the tying goal, but it was called off for offsides. Oof. And then Gusala ends up putting on a little insurance goal with about 10 minutes left. Matthew Hoffman, the Hebron keeper, had some terrific saves from what I hear for the Hawks. So, this is only the second time in 5 years that Hebron's been to the playoffs, but the last time they were in the playoffs 2 years ago, they went all the way to the regional finals. So, coming out of 6-6A, obviously you're seeing how strong this district is. Marcus beats Keller 2-1, Flower Mound beats Byron Nelson 4-0. Talking about shootouts, Coppell beat Denton Geyer 1-0 in a shootout. That was a game Matt was covering. So Austin Simogen had a couple shots in the shootout. Coppell goes 4 for 4. So a clean sweep for 5-6A. Brock Clayton scores twice for Flower Mound in their win over Byron Nelson. So looking ahead, you have Marcus. They'll get Richardson Pierce 7:30 Tuesday at the Colony. Flower Mound will get Duncanville Tuesday at Birdville, and then a doubleheader Tuesday in Grapevine. You have Hebron off their big upset playing WT White at 6 o'clock, and then Coppell versus Grand Prairie at 8 o'clock.
Now, is that where you'll be at?
That's where I will be, out in Grapevine.
Okay.
I actually drove by there the other day, and it looks like the stadium's, obviously it's finished now, but it looks pretty nice over there actually. So
I'll be on the other side of the Metroplex. I'll be Tuesday at Wildcat Ram Stadium, who has one of the better soccer facilities in the area, going to McKinney North Kelton Creekview girls game. And the McKinney game, McKinney High, boys, they'll take on Belton from Central Texas, way up in Midlothian. So
a little bit of a haul.
Yeah.
More of a haul for Belton, but yeah.
Yeah, but definitely the favorites McKinney.
For
and
sure.
More importantly, I think McKinney is going to find a way to win. They're just that team that's real close-knit. Like, they don't jump off the page to you until they beat you.
Now, we can't end this podcast without me talking about Lakeland.
I'm not done.
I know you're not done. I thought we were wrapping things up. Kendrick sounded like we were wrapping things up. There's still a lot to talk about here.
6A girls.
Okay, let's hit your 6A girls.
Okay, so whereas 6-6A pretty dominated the boys side, going 4-0, they actually only went 1-3 on the girls side, which was a little surprise to me because Marcus and Hebron, have some very good sides. Hebron goes down to Denton Geyer. It's 0-0. They give up the goal with 15 seconds left off an offensive rebound. So they were 15 seconds away from penalties. And
how crushed were they?
Denton Geyer, they're pretty crushed, I'm guessing. And then the one I was at was Byron Nelson versus Marcus on Friday, and obviously Marcus coming off their trip to the state championship last year. But Byron Nelson scored about 5 minutes in, and man, they pretty much had control of this match from my perspective most of the way.
Now this is a Flower Mound Marcus team without Taylor Moon.
Taylor Moon,
without most of those all-stars from last year.
So they're very young. They have a lot of freshmen and sophomores on the field. They're only going to lose 4 starters from this team, so they'll be back next year, but tough loss for them. Then kind of the 2 headlines. So you have Flower Mound, the number 4 seed. They lose to Southlake 5-1. And then Coppell, the number 1 seed, they get a 3-0 win over Keller. Jocelyn Alonso scores, Michelle Pack scores twice. So now Coppell moves on. They'll get Mansfield Lake Ridge Tuesday at Pennington Field. Southlake is going to play South Grand Prairie, and that's kind of setting up, if they both win, for that massive third-round showdown between the top 2 teams in the state there. 2 of the top 5 teams in the country, if you look at the top drawer.
That'd be nuts. That would be nuts.
Massive.
You said Coppell is 1 and Southlake is 3?
Well, it depends if you look at the regional rankings or the top drawer. But if you look at the national rankings, it's Southlake is 4 and Capel is 5.
Should be juicy.
Yeah,
and that'd be third round.
Third round, yeah.
It's a shame. That should be a state semifinal or state final.
At least a regional final.
At the worst, for sure. And before we wrap things up, got to talk about Wakeland. They take care of business. The boys blow out Sherman, and the girls, Wakeland, they blow out. I had it here. They blow out Lovejoy.
So many games.
Both, I know.
Here's another in the girls' game. Gracie Bryant had not one, not two.
She had three. She had a hat trick. I looked that up, specified. From what I saw, she had 3. Still 3 goals. Still something to.
That ties the record in MISD Stadium. That would have been a new MISD record for the McKinney Stadium because they played there.
Well, how many games have they played?
What do they have?
It's like
10 games.
The stadium's been there for like 8 months.
I always keep records. I'm just a fat guy.
Well, and then so y'all mentioned where y'all will be Tuesday night. I will also be at a doubleheader in your neck of the woods at Capel, Buddy Eccles Stadium, correct? Field. Sorry. For Centennial against Highland Park girls. I feel like every playoffs I see the Highland Park girls, and they're always the juggernaut. And then after that will be Little Elm versus Burleson Centennial. So we'll see how that goes there. Doubleheader at Capel. Lots. We talked about a lot of things. I'm sure we missed some things, but we.
I got the McKinney Boyd programs where they don't rebuild, they reload. Both teams went out one and done in the playoffs this year. I know they're disappointed, but
they weren't expected to be that same McKinney Boyd team this year.
But there's a standard there for that program. And
but when you lose your entire starting lineup, it's
confidence that Coach Peak and Coach Wilson will find ways to turn it around. They both have talented squads coming up, and their whole programs are loaded from like top to bottom. So boy and soccer go hand in hand. Don't expect them to be down for that long.
So later this week, we'll have a baseball edition podcast with the mid-district really heating up, 9-6A, 9-5A, all of your Denton County districts with Marcus and Hebron and all those guys over there, Louisville. We'll talk about what's going on the diamond there. Next week, I'm sure we'll be back talking more soccer with regional tournament talk. I'm sure we'll have plenty of teams left in it. So that's Kendrick Johnson. That's Justin Thomas. I'm Brian Murphy. We'll see you later this week.